All right, I want to give a couple more seconds for everybody to get in, but I want to say thank you guys for joining us tonight. We're really excited. I think we've got a really diverse audience tonight. We've got a lot of people joining us from all over the state of Tennessee, and so that's really exciting for us. We're starting to expand our boundaries and our reach, and that's what we want to do. So thank you guys for joining us tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and get started now. It looks like most people have entered from the waiting room. So welcome everyone to another episode of Family Matters with Judge Phil Smith, moderated by yours truly. My name is Stephanie Williams, and I have the pleasure of serving as the special master to Judge Philip Smith in the Fourth Circuit Court here in Davidson County. And I also have the distinct honor tonight to serve as the sidekick, Judge Smith's words, not mine, for Judge Smith and his very special guest, Judge Allegra Walker, tonight as we discuss domestic violence. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So we are dedicating our show tonight to domestic violence. Before we get started, I'd like to make a few quick announcements, if you will. First, this will be our last episode of Family Matters with Phil Smith for the year. Don't fret, we're going to be back in January. And we will send out a notice closer to that date as to the exact date that we will resume our monthly programming. Due to a schedule conflict with Judge Smith, we're going to probably change the day of the week from Wednesday to another day. And so once we solidify that, we'll definitely send out that information. So please be looking in your emails at the beginning of January to get updated on when you will catch us next. Also, Judge Smith is partnering with the Nashville Bar Association to present a CLE on November the 4th entitled Domestic Violence for Lawyers, How to Help Your Clients and Protect Yourself. And this will be a very informative 2-hour general CLE credit program that will address topics such as how to best assist and protect domestic violence clients, red flags with domestic violence clients, vicarious trauma that attorneys experience from domestic violence cases and the available support to attorneys from TLAP, and how to protect yourself as an attorney. And Judge Smith will be joined by panelists, Judge Allegra Walker and Special Master Dana Ballinger of the First Circuit Court here in Davidson County, Attorney Rob Briley, Diane Lance, the Director of the Metro Office of Family Safety, Mickey Nelson, who is a retired Assistant Director for the U.S. Secret Service. And so we are excited about that event. Please go to the NBA's website for more information and to register. Again, the event will be on November the 4th, and it will be in person. Next, please feel free to share any comments or questions that you have from today's programming in the chat screen. We will do our very best to keep up with everything and try to address as much as we can. And you may also submit any suggestions you may have for future programs. So we're always looking for ideas, and please feel free to share them with us. Lastly, I would like to thank the Women's Political Collaborative for partnering with us this evening and making this available as a very affordable CLE to all of our attorney friends out there. Judge Smith, Judge Walker, and I are all very proud members of the Women's Political Collaborative and encourage you to join by going to WPCTN.com today. So I think that takes care of our announcements. I want to start off by formally introducing you to Judge Philip Smith. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Judge Smith in our courts, Judge Smith is a Nashville native who graduated from McGavock High School, attended Middle Tennessee State University, and graduated from Tennessee State University, as well as the Tennessee UT College of Law. I'm so sorry. University of Tennessee College of Law. I guess I would normally say go Vols, but I'm a little concerned about that after what we saw this weekend with them. So I'm going to leave that alone. Judge Smith started his legal career in 1988. You do the math, as district attorney, as an assistant district attorney. And in 1990, he entered private practice with the Norman Law Offices here in Nashville, where he focused his practice in the area of family law. In 2001, he moved his practice with now Judge Philip Smith and Special Master Teresa Webb Oglesby, and continued to focus on family law. During his 19 years of private practice, Judge Smith tried hundreds of civil cases, most of which were family law cases. And in 2009, he was both admitted as a fellow to the prestigious American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers and appointed as judge of the Fourth Circuit Court, 20th Judicial District here in Davidson County by Governor Phil Bredesen upon the retirement of Judge Muriel Robinson. Also, at the time of his appointment, he was a board certified family trial advocate by the National Board of Trial Advocacy. Since his appointment as judge, Judge Smith has been very active in promoting the prevention of domestic violence. In 2010, he, along with the late Gene Crow, encouraged Mayor Carl Dean to conduct a safety assessment of the domestic violence prevention procedures in Davidson County. And those requests led to the Nashville-Davidson County Domestic Violence Safety and Accountability Assessment that was released in 2013 and resulted in many changes and improvements in the prevention of domestic violence, including the creation of the Gene Crow Advocacy Center and the Family Safety Center. Judge Smith currently serves on the board of the Family Safety Center. Upon his appointment to the bench, Judge Smith immediately began performing second parent adoptions that allowed same-sex parents to adopt children years before the U.S. Supreme Court recognized same-sex marriages. He's been very active in the community during his time on the bench. He has previously served on the board of directors for Amqui Station and Visitor Center. He has also served on the board of the Family Center. And Judge Smith had the honor of serving as one of the chairs of the Justice A.A. Birch Jr. Statute Committee, which resulted in the bronze statute of Judge Birch that sits outside of the A.A. Birch building now. In 2015, Judge Smith was honored by the Women's Political Collaborative with the Good Guys Award for his work in the prevention of domestic violence. And in 2016, he was awarded the 2016 CLE Excellence Award from the Nashville Bar Association. Judge Smith also serves as an adjunct professor at the Nashville School of Law, where he teaches family law and domestic trial practice. And in 2021, he started this very informative and fun monthly webcast, Family Matters with Judge Smith, to inform the public in general about family law and family courts. While he generally spends his free time enjoying his family, including 3 grandchildren and his dog, Prissy, lately he's been working on opinions morning, noon, and night. Thank you, Judge Smith, for all that you have done and that you continue to do.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Absolutely. While our special guest, Judge Allegra Walker, needs no introduction, I want to brag on her a little bit too. Judge Allegra Walker served as an assistant public defender and an assistant district attorney general before she was elected to the elected justice of the General Sessions Court, Division 4 here in Davidson County, taking the bench in August of 2014, where she is currently serving as one of 3 judges that preside over the court's domestic violence cases, as well as presiding over environmental court. Judge Walker is the 3rd woman of color elected in Davidson County General Sessions Court and is the 3rd woman to preside over Division 4. Judge Walker is a member of the Nashville Bar Association, the Napier-Luby Bar Association, serving as a past president, the Lawyers Association for Women, the National Association for Women Judges, and is an emeritus member of the Harry Phillips American Inn of Court, among other professional organizations. She was honored and awarded the Honorable Justice A.A. Birch Award for Outstanding Service by the Napier-Luby Bar Foundation in 2015. Davidson County Democratic Women nominated Judge Walker as their Athena nominee in 2015 and was recognized by her alma mater as a Fisk University Women of Prominence in 2016 and 2017. She was also recognized as one of the 100 influential African Americans in Davidson County. Most recently, she was awarded the Tennessee State University Women of Legend and Merit Award in 2020. And in 2021, the Nashville Business Journal's Women of Influence Award. Of Toledo College of Law. Thank you, Judge Walker, for everything you've done and continue to do, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Pleasure is all mine.
So you can sound a little more excited when you say that.
The pleasure is all mine, Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm trying to set the tone with the energy because domestic violence is a tough topic, and I think we can all agree on that. So I first want to kind of get into questions. In your introductions, I set forth the courts that you currently preside over. So Judge Walker, you're clearly in a general sessions court, and Judge Smith, you're in a circuit court, state trial court. And I first want to kind of talk about both of you hear orders of protections and have jurisdictions for them. I want to talk about the differences in the order of protection cases that you hear. What distinguishes a case that may be in general sessions court versus in circuit court? And I'd like to start off with you, Judge Walker, as it relates to that.
So in general sessions courts, primarily, we're going to hear orders of protection where, of course, you need to have the relationship. So you need to be married, related by blood, related through marriage. There has to be allegations of sexual assault. You had to have lived together. There had to have been some kind of relationship that gets you there. And then from there, we'll further reduce that down. If there's children, whether or not there's some kind of order. Were they married? If they're married, then we'll punt that over to Phil or Dana. If they're not married, we're looking if there's an order of support or some other directions dealing with the child. And then if there's children where they're not been married and there is a currently pending juvenile court case, we'll punt that across the street to Judge Calloway's court. But other than that, the majority of those cases come to general sessions court.
Okay. And Judge Smith, how is that distinguished from what we see here in circuit court?
Well, first of all, the number, general sessions clearly hears many, many more orders of protection, about 4 times the number of orders of protection that circuit court hears. In circuit court, orders of protection are assigned generally if the parties are married or have been married. If children are involved where there is an order, we may have a parentage action pending in circuit court. We've got concurrent jurisdiction with juvenile court. And, sometimes we'll get those cases where a child is involved and a matter is pending in juvenile court. We have Judge Philip Robinson and I have a special master that assists us on the docket, Dana Ballinger, who does a great job with orders of protection. And most of the lawyers know Dana and have tried cases in front of Dana. The appeals from general sessions come to Dana first before we hear them. And anything circuit court gets, as far as an order of protection is concerned, it goes to Dana also. And you've got a 5-day period to appeal the matter to either me or Judge Robinson, and we will hear it for oftentimes the 3rd time. General Sessions has heard it, Dana's heard it, and we're hearing it for the 3rd time. But right now in Davidson County, I believe, and Judge Walker will correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we've got about close to 5,000 cases flowing through Davidson County on an annual basis, which is a lot of orders of protection. And like I said, General Sessions does bear the brunt of carrying that load. And I appreciate all they do. Judge Walker is one of the 3 judges that hears the domestic violence docket, Judge Anna Escobar and Judge Gail Robinson. And it's a difficult docket to hear, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Judge Walker, y'all are on that docket for 8 months. Is that correct?
Right. So each judge will take an 8-month rotation.
Yeah. And speaking from experience, domestic violence is a high burnout area. You hear things that you would, lay people could not imagine hearing. So, that 8-month period is really it's a stretch. And then I think y'all get an 8-month break. Is that right?
Just 4.
Just 4. Oh,
just
I'm
a
sorry.
4-month break. I'm
4
on
months.
my break right now, so I'm good.
Okay, well, good. But anyway, that's kind of the difference in the way the two courts get assigned orders of protection cases. And they're actually assigned at the commissioner level for most of the orders of protection.
So how often would you say, Judge Walker, I will ask this of you because I think this falls more in your jurisdiction and your courts. How often will you see a criminal case that is associated with the order of protection case? And how does it impact the hearing of the order of protection case?
So we see it quite often. I would say maybe 20 to 30% of the OPs per day that come have a criminal case that's associated with it. So here's a school of thought. We typically, our practice is if there's an open pending criminal case, to continue that order of protection along with the criminal case. And we do it for several reasons. Well, not several, but we do it from, and I guess with judges, keep in mind, you have to come right down the middle. So it's good to understand each side, but you have to make a decision and you really can't sway on either side. So for a victim's perspective, they really kind of sometimes want to have those things heard now because we want some closure to it. I want that final order in my hand. And if there's weapons in the home, which a lot of times there are, I want to officially get those weapons dispossessed of. Good luck with that. We do what we can do. Blame your legislators, do not blame us. So they want those orders of protection heard for those reasons. If you are a defendant and you have an attorney with you, those defense attorneys really don't want those heard before the criminal case because they don't want their client saying anything that also has that criminal piece wrapped into it as well. So typically we will continue them on to the criminal case. Some of the problems we run into, to be honest, particularly during COVID, we don't have a lot going now, but during COVID, when we were shut down for months and months and months, those cases kind of got pushed out quite a bit. Now, if I continue on today, the criminal case will hit a docket, let's say within 6 to 8 weeks, which is a long time, but there's a lot of cases that flow through with domestic, to be honest. So it's a long time, but that's kind of what it is.
Judge Smith, is there a different thought process in circuit court as it relates to the orders of protection and kind of allowing them to coincide from a timing standpoint with any related criminal case?
Well, I mean, we deal solely with the civil aspect of an order of protection. As we all know, an order of protection itself is a civil order for which the violation can have criminal consequences. General Sessions handles the criminal side of our orders of protection. And of course, if the case is bound over to the grand jury, it'll go up to criminal court. But no, we don't have the restrictions kind of that they have over there. And certainly I am not critical in any way of the way General Sessions does it. I think they're doing it the only way they can do it. And they're balancing that Fifth Amendment right, against the final hearing on an order of protection. And you've usually got protections of a temporary order of protection. You may also have protection in bond conditions. So that continuance for 6 to 8 weeks is absolutely necessary in General Sessions. We don't have that issue. We do grant continuances from time to time, but it's usually only 2 to 3 weeks. We can get them heard pretty quick because we don't have that required criminal protection that the General Sessions has to deal with.
So for those who may be less informed than others that are with us this evening, what is an order of protection and essentially what is it designed to do? Judge Smith, I'll let you go first on that.
Well, I mean, it's in the nature of a restraining order, but it's got a lot more bite to it. you know, in a domestic case, a divorce case, a violation of a restraining order is usually enforced by criminal or civil contempt. On an order of protection, it covers a lot of different areas. It can cover child support, spousal support, child custody. It can award a home, the temporary use of a home, to a home that is titled in a defendant's name. It can award the primary residence of the parties, or use and benefit of the primary residence of the parties. And you've got your protection provisions in there that include, no contact, issues of, you got to stay away from the home. You can't destroy any property. And a violation of an order of protection can be punished by criminal warrant. In addition, the police or the enforcement agency who is called to the scene, if they have a reasonable suspicion that this order of protection, or probable cause that the order of protections have been violated by the defendant, and the defendant is there, they can take the defendant into custody immediately. And he should be held for a period of time. I think it's 12 hours, if I'm not mistaken, before he or she can be released. And sometimes they're not released. Sometimes the bond is set at a high enough amount they can't make bond. So an order of protection has a lot of bite to it, but in reality, it is a souped up restraining order, for lack of a better term, or restraining order on steroids.
Judge Walker, you were making comment as it relates to the firearm disposition and maybe how effective that may or may not be. Would you like to expand a little bit on that and tell us how someone who an order of protection is granted against, what their responsibilities are as it relates to firearm dispossession and how that really works?
So with the firearm dispossession laws, if you are, if you have an order of protection placed upon you, I will give those instructions without fail. I'll ask you, do you have firearms? Especially, I'm going to ask you anyway, but I would have looked at the order of protection to see if there's any discussions about firearms, because there's a little check mark on the box. But I'll ask them about firearms. Do you have firearms? No, ma'am, I don't have any firearms. All right, well, it's odd because I see here, in this affidavit, he mentions firearms, and the box is also checked. Do you or do you not have firearms? Last and final question. No, ma'am, I don't have firearms. Okay, well, great. Under, penalty and perjury, I need you to sign off that you do not have firearms. Okay, so they have within 48 hours. I never let them just willy-nilly do that. I make them fill it out in front of me right then, and that gets attached into the file. If they do have firearms, yes, ma'am, I do have firearms. Okay, well, Joe Blow or Susie Cottonseed, you need to dispossess yourself of the firearms within 48 hours. Okay, ma'am, I'll fill out the form. I'll dispossess myself within 48 hours. And that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
And what does dispossess mean? Like,
that means you have to take them and put them somewhere. But the problem that comes in with the law, and it's where Tennessee is very weak, one of the few states remaining in this beautiful union that has weak dispossession laws. You don't know if they're telling the truth. A, you don't know if they're telling the truth. But B, I don't know exactly what firearms you have, where they have gone. I don't know if you really gave them to your daddy. I don't know that. That's just what you told me. There's no compliance piece to that. So we're trying to work out some things where we can have compliance hearings, especially for those people who say they do have firearms, for them to have to come back to court and give some additional information as to where those weapons are, who has them. But until then, it's kind of loosey-goosey on the firearms. And of course, that puts the advocacy, community in uproar, and they have been in uproar for years and years and years, and they've been lobbying like crazy. But the legislature really just hadn't done much with that. So firearms is a problem. Firearms is a problem. We don't know who's really has them and who does not have them.
So Judge Smith, what would you say a domestic violence victim looks like?
Well, before I go into that, I'd like to follow up on the firearms dispossession aspect of it. And you know, the Waffle House shooter that took place at the Waffle House out towards the Rutherford Davidson County line, I believe it was on Murfreesboro Road. I don't recall specifically, but that individual had been dispossessed of his firearms. And somehow somebody gave him back to him, maybe an order of protection expired, maybe it was by restraining order. But at the same time, you know, he should not have had a firearm. And, you know, right now in Davidson County, we've had a lot of domestic violence homicides, more than we've had in any 12 or 18 month period in the history of Metro. So many of these have been committed with firearms. It is a real concern. And Judge Walker's, you know, I feel her frustration with that. I have the same frustration. You know, we have them execute the firearms dispossession affidavit. They turn it in, and that's it. That's all we can do. Now, you know, I preside over a domestic relations court, and you know, God forbid, no one ever lies in that court. But essentially, you know, they could fill it out, turn it in, and never do anything with their firearms. The problem with getting legislation through is the NRA and the Tennessee Firearms Association, and they both have their purposes, many of which I don't agree with, but they have a very strong lobby in the state of Tennessee. And one concern I have in putting this before the legislature at this time is that the legislature may abolish what we have. So we've got to be careful on this and going to the legislature and asking for more. We definitely need more. We may need to have follow-up dockets. We need to have the ability to talk to the third party if they have dispossessed to a third party. And it'd be great if they don't show up for a disposition hearing, we have them arrested, you know, and bring them in. But we don't, once they turn that in, there's nothing else we can do. And that's truly unfortunate. But getting back to your question, you know, I have to say, Stephanie, I don't know what a domestic violence victim looks like. It could be your next door neighbor who you chat with, maybe drink a cold beer with, or, you know, go out and cook out with. It could be, you know, a situation where they're being physically or emotionally abused. You just don't know. And I'll have to say, you know, there are things that I look at when I'm trying a case to help me decide whether the allegations in the petition have been, you know, committed. And, you know, because you usually don't have video, you usually don't have recording, but it's a he said, she said kind of thing. And so we have to make a decision. Is it, you know, by preponderance of the evidence, did this occur? And so there are certain things that I tend to look at in that situation. And I'm going to ask Judge Walker to chime in on this, but control, one party controlling another party, you know, taking away cell phones, monitoring phone calls, prohibiting contact with family. I look at the way they testify. Do they come across like they're trying to control me? You know, the degree of violence can come into play. And, you know, was it Was it stalking? Was it strangulation involved? Was a weapon involved? These are all things that you have to look at. But there's certain things that I think every judge that works in this area looks at and tries to detect before they render a decision on whether the events have occurred or not.
And just to piggyback on Phil's comment, a DV victim can look like anybody. It can look like me. It can look like your sister. It can look like your mama. It crosses all racial boundaries, economics, education. It crosses everything. It crosses religion. I have seen them come in all sizes, shapes, colors, professions, come through that court with domestic violence cases. And there will be times when I'm thinking, what is she doing here? But she's here because she can be anybody. She can be your big sister. I mean, so there's no look to anybody in domestic violence. Like it literally can be anybody. And I've heard women say all the time, of course, those men or those women. And to be honest, 70% of victims of domestic violence are women, about 30% are men. I think the numbers may be a little more because men don't often want to report. Women, it's hard for women to want to report, right? It's very hard for a man to come in to report that his girlfriend or his wife is being violent and doing things to him. So that number may actually be higher than the 30%, but that's what's documented. And I just forgot what I was saying. What was I saying, Stephanie?
Well, you're talking about what a domestic violence victim looks like. And you were leaning a lot towards saying she. And then I think you realized you did want to make a point that men are victims as well.
Mm-hmm. But I think what Phil was saying in terms of looking at people's credibility, some of that is innate, like it's learned, I can just feel it. And then some of it you really can't always tell. So I'm looking very closely to the testimony. I'm looking very closely to that. They are truly batterers. They always pop up and pop out, especially with the female judge. It's very interesting and sometimes quite comical how they pop out in court with a female judge. And it's also interesting, sometimes I may ask some questions and I know they're going to pop out. I mean, they hate that power and control. So as soon as I'm doing something to control that narrative, that conversation that they're giving me, they want to come back in and control me. So it is very interesting, but I pay attention to every little detail to it, especially if it's something that you really can't tell. You got to dig a little deeper and you kind of just got to really focus in and listen to the testimony. And I guess nobody's 100%. I'm not 100%. I probably made some wrong calls, which is, you have the appeals process in place if you don't like a judgment that I've done. But it's interesting work. It really is interesting work. Not many people are called to do this work, but I enjoy it and it's interesting. Makes me want to pull my hair out and keep a bottle of Clairol for the gray that comes in all up here. But it's good work.
Yeah, I just want to make mention of a comment that's in our chat section from attorney Brittany Gates, and she made a really good point that some victims don't even realize they're victims. And a client that she had today did not realize that until she went through the process and was interviewed by police officers and went to the Gene Crow Advocacy Center and began to get some resources and assistance. But she did not realize that she was a victim.
Because it wasn't physical. Mm-hmm. And that's what people get messed up. It's not always physical. It can be emotional, it can be mental, it can be financial, and it can be sexual. So it can be any of those things, and any of those things that I use to exert my power over you, therefore to control you. It can be all of that. So it's very easy that people not always recognize it because they're kind of looking at that physical piece, but it's way more than just the physical.
How has social media or cell phones kind of, for lack of better words, entered the world of domestic violence or changed the game? How have those things impacted domestic violence? cases.
I dare say that it is the bane of our existence. Social media, people meet each other. They hadn't had contact for years. They meet each other. They may get involved with each other. Somehow messages come out, causes problems between partners or spouses. Cell phones probably worse than social media. We got to remember that yanking a cell phone out of your spouse's hand is technically an assault, and that's enough to get an order of protection. And so I won't say everything, but a lot of cases involve some sort of slight or evidence from social media. Other cases, and a whole lot of them involve cell phones. And, we may see it on the front end of a divorce where, maybe one spouse is involved with someone else. And, the innocent spouse, senses something, their questions aren't being answered. So, a suspicious phone call comes in, and all of a sudden that cell phone is ripped out of the guilty spouse's hand, and the guilty spouse now has grounds for an order of protection against the innocent spouse and trying to, discover what's going on. And those are tough decisions, when you've got an issue, an order of protection in favor of a party that's really their behavior caused the incident that resulted in the facts that are, going to cause an award of an order of protection against really the innocent spouse in the marriage. So, these, social media and cell phones, oh, wow. I wish they had never been invented from, from the perspective of being a judge.
But can't they also be helpful? Like it gives somebody access to call for help or record something that's going on?
Oh, that'd be great if you could only dial 911.
Yeah.
I'd be all for them.
So Phil's courtroom clearly is way more civilized than General Sessions. He's way more civilized. So I hate the cell phones and social media, but from time to time, that is the best evidence, and it gets quite entertaining for the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when I'm seeing that cell phone, I'm seeing people that are doing things with the stalking. They got trackers on the phone, or they manipulated your emails, or they're up on you on Facebook or WhatsApp, and they create all these little crazy apps to call you where you can almost go undetected. I'm seeing the cheating that goes on when the men can't press the delete button, and women find these messages and all hell breaks loose from there. I'm seeing the threatening that go back and forth because everybody's involved in a relationship. When it goes south, they want to text something crazy, and then the other person want to text something crazy back, and it just goes back and forth. And then you'll get threats to kill, threats to come over. I'm seeing the video recording. Love it. If you can get me some recording, especially on an order of protection where there are two crazy chicks fighting over some guy that they both know he's cheating with both of them, and somebody's claiming they're scared or she's trying to do this, inevitably somebody would have pressed the record button and you get to see it all. So I let it come in, they have it, I'm gonna look at it, and it's a hallelujah good time from time to time because I can really cut to the chase and see really what happened, because sometimes those stories are different before you get to the actual cell phone recording. I like the cell phone because they'll take pictures of their injury. So they don't have to necessarily wait on that police officer. They got it right there, and they're showing, a plug out of my hair. They're showing, where I've been strangled. You're getting all of that, and they will bring all of that in court. So it's the good, the bad, and the ugly of cell phones and social media. But I really wish I won't say men, I really wish the cheaters would just press the delete button, and that really would stop a lot of conflict in court.
So earlier today, as we were chit-chatting before this program tonight, we were talking about judicial conference, and it's going on right now for our state trial court judges. And I think the general sessions judges had one within the last week or two. What kind of training takes place for judges as it relates to domestic violence, orders of protection? Do you all learn about signs of an abuser? One participant this evening asked about the narcissistic personality disorder. Do you have insight about that? Another participant said that she's finding that in rural counties where she practices, judges are issuing mutual restraining orders in order protection cases versus the order protection itself, as to children, with the idea that the father must not be deprived of his parental rights. So help us understand, like, what advice and guidance are you all given as judges when it comes to trainings and orders of protection?
Well,
I'll say in sessions. Oh, go ahead, Phil. I think in sessions here.
So go ahead. I'll zip it.
In Davidson County and Sessions Court, we are quite fortunate. There are only 3 of us at full with domestic violence cases, and that's for a reason. Because we're probably only 3 that need a full with domestic violence cases. So I was a prosecutor that I did domestic violence, and I was public defender before that and did quite a bit of it as well. And it was something I really wanted to do and understood. Gil Robinson's been on the bench doing domestic violence for over 20 years. And then Anna Escobar did a lot of domestic violence work in the prosecutor's office. So we all come already trained to do domestic. We want to do domestic, so we take it seriously. In our conferences, we do about an hour a year, hour every 2 hours a year, which really isn't a whole lot. And those of us, of course, if that's your specialty, you're going to get extra things that we'll attend anyway, and stay up with what's current. Now, I don't know what other counties do, and I do have some judicial friends across the state, and it can get kind of loosey-goosey. So I feel your pain.
I've gotten a lot of on-the-job training. When I was with the DA's office, this was before we had a domestic violence docket. I was sent over to prosecute violations of the orders of protection when it was just simply a criminal contempt that was filed, and that was in front of Judge Muriel Robinson back in 1988. As far as training, we get training at judicial conferences. There are some good seminars that the Office of Family Safety will put on from time to time. The Tennessee Coalition will offer training. I had the honor and privilege of going to a seminar up in Providence, Rhode Island, that was put on by the National Judicial College a couple of years ago. And we just spent a week on domestic violence issues. Probably the best training that I've ever had was that particular seminar. As far as the discussion about the narcissistic personality, obviously I have no formal training in it, but from the divorce side of the cases that I hear, you learn a lot about narcissists and how they manipulate, how they control, and how they can be a danger. So no formal training on that, other than I keep a DSM 5, and we may be on the DSM 7 by now. I keep one on the bench and look things up from time to time, but no formal training on any of the psychological disorders that may be the underlying issue.
I want to make a note that one of our viewers also raised a great point that we did not talk about when we talked about what does a victim look like, what would abusers look like. And she made a great point. Abusers can also, span the scale on anything in terms of socioeconomic status, profession, who they could be, somebody at the country club with you on the weekends or on the basketball court or whatever, that they too can look like anybody. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts with an abuser, I think, is true. They can look like anybody. Now, they all have personality types, I think, that are very similar. So a lot of times an abuser will be a very charming person. They will, totally indulge you. They want to get involved very fast. They ingratiate themselves with your friends, with your family. They just kind of come in and, they can swoop down and be Prince Charming. So if you understand that cycle of violence, that's that honeymoon stage that occurs with batterers, where everything is great. And then there'll be some kind of event that'll build up that tension. And then you may get that violence that comes down, and then they're sorry and they're apologizing, this and that. And then it goes back through that cycle. So violence doesn't have to happen straight off the bat. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be actual years. It just depends on how they're using that power to control you. And that control, pops up in various ways. They want to know about where you're going. They want to know about your friends. They'll not often like your friends or your family, or try to isolate you from the friends and the family. They're going to use that financial control with you as well. Oh, honey, you don't have to work. I'll allow you to quit your job. I'll take care of you. You just focus on keeping the house and taking care of the kids. Well, sometimes that's a great hookup. I mean, it's a great hookup, I guess. But other times, if it's an abuser, they're using that because you're not going to have money to go anywhere to leave, and you got the kids, and you've quit your job. Like, it's a lot. Like, they can look like anybody, and the form of control runs the gamut as well.
Yeah,
that's lifestyle control. Let's see that a lot. Same situation. If you have a spouse that's working or a victim that's working, a lot of times the abuser will call me when you're leaving. You've got 10 minutes to get home or 15 minutes to get home. And if you're late, I know you're with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. And
they're tracking the phones and the cars.
Yeah, that's right. Tracker on the car, which, if it's titled in both names, is, I believe, is it a misdemeanor? I can't remember whether it's a felony or misdemeanor.
I don't remember on that.
It's illegal. They can track your phone. It is the ultimate control. But one of the easiest ways to control is the lifestyle control, like Judge Walker talked about. And, you stay at home, raise the kids, and, I'll provide for everything. At that point, the lifestyle control is usually controlled through money, through access to an automobile, all of these type of things. But that's probably the easiest way to control someone.
And so that takes me into my next question. I think you've kind of started and a part of an answer to this question, but why is it that victims stay? Why don't they just up and leave? I mean, that's what everybody always asks. Like, why don't somebody just leave?
I think, and I'm going to use the term fear, it's fear of circumstances. It's not just fear of the abuser. But let's say, and let's say in this situation, there is a man, he's the abuser, and the woman is the victim. Say they're husband and wife. They may have children. The victim is going to worry about losing the children, because threats over children and taking children away are something that abusers always use. What are they going to do for money? They haven't worked during the marriage. Maybe they have limited education. They're worried about how they're going to provide for themselves, and how they're going to keep a roof over the head of how she's going to keep a roof over her head of her children, how the children are going to be fed. The other thing is the fear of leaving. And we talked about this earlier. The most dangerous time for a victim is when that victim leaves the relationship and breaks that control. That is the most dangerous time. And it's fear of that, and an abuser is usually pretty good at destroying self-confidence, self-esteem. And, the victim comes to believe that they're completely dependent on the abuser. And I know in one seminar that it was 7 times that an order of protection will be requested before, on average, this is an average, before the victim will finally break with the abuser. And that's an extremely high number. And, for lack of a better term, and I'm sure Judge Walker sees it too, we've got a lot of frequent flyers, these cases that have 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 order requests for orders of protection. And in a lot of those cases, the victim doesn't even show up. So it is a cycle, and it's one that is tough to break.
And let me just piggyback on Phil with why don't victims leave. There's a laundry list as to why. They love these people. They just don't want the violence, but they love these folks, and they go back in time in their head to when it was all sweet. And, he did these things or she did these things. They love these folks. They just want the violence to stop. They also don't leave because they have family influences. I tell people all the time, and especially when I'm talking to young girls, please watch who you get your advice from. Just because it's, your auntie or your grandmama or your mama, doesn't mean that's also always sound and good advice, because depending upon what their experience may be with relationships in men and women, they may give you that advice from that perspective. Oh, don't leave. He's a good man. He's providing. He has a good job. You got those kids. What you gonna do? So that's another reason. Sometimes with the religion, depending on the religion, it prevents people from wanting to leave as well, because there's religious pressures and they don't want to do that. There's nowhere for folks to go. Let's just say for COVID. It's a pandemic and I got 3 kids. Where am I going? Who's opening up your home to me? And I'm not going to a shelter, and the unknown is out there in a pandemic. Even if not a pandemic, how long am I going to be able to stay on my girlfriend's couch and I got 3 kids? She tells me to come on, girl, bring those kids over here. I got you. But after a couple, 2-3 weeks, when the money runs low and he's cut my credit cards off and I don't have access anymore to anything, how long is she going to take care of me? Or how long is mama going to take care of me? So a lot of options will tend to run out for people, and that just adds to the reasons why they don't leave, and it takes them 7 times on average to leave these abusive relationships.
I want to circle back around to a question from one of our viewers that was earlier, and then I want to transition into talking about what resources are available out there for everybody, be it victims, abusers, the children, and everything. But really quick, Judge Walker, we have a viewer that asked, could you expand on how a defendant's Fifth Amendment's rights are affected with the OP procedure in General Sessions Court? Does the defendant have to specifically invoke that right for the case to kind of be continued, or how does that work?
I'm gonna just be honest with you all. I got defense background and it still runs in my blood, although people don't always think that. It does. I think once defense, you kind of always to some degree. So I'm the kind of person, I'm gonna invoke it for you. I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna tell you, we don't need, it would probably be wiser not to give testimony about this, because that you may have to say something that's going to damage you potentially with your criminal case. It'd probably be in your best interest. Most people take heed to that. And if they have attorneys, of course, they're not gonna say one word. But I don't know if that's good or bad, but I generally won't let them sit and testify like that. It's just bad. And they don't know any better. and they don't have anybody advising them any better. You know what I mean? So sometimes I will do that and just go ahead and continue it. See if everybody's good with the continuance.
Mhm. So I want to again transition into talking about, we've got 5 minutes left. We do like to be timely and thoughtful of people's time. Want to transition to talk about what resources are available. We know the courts are available to come in and, get relief one way or the other, which takes me into something else we didn't have a chance to talk about tonight, and that's any misuses of orders of protection in the legal system. But what resources are available to help victims, to assist abusers and children that are impacted from domestic violence?
Without getting into each individual resource that is out there, the best advice I could give someone who is going through the order of protection process that's a victim is contact the Gene Crow Advocacy Center or the Family Safety Center, particularly the Family Safety Center. They're both part of the same organization, but they can direct you to a lot of particularly nonprofits, some faith-based initiatives that can help victims with all of those issues. And I know the Family Safety Center tries to provide that under one umbrella to keep victims, particularly victims with children, from running over, to East Nashville and then back to Antioch or then back to Bellevue. It's a wonderful resource for, domestic violence victims. And I strongly recommend contacting the office of, either the Gene Crow Advocacy Center, who's probably going to send you to the Family Safety Center, but get them involved. If there's any recurring violations, they can put you in touch with detectives over at the domestic violence unit. And, it's really important that everyone know about the resources that are available, and they can provide that.
And Judge Walker has phone numbers too. So the Family Safety Center, Stephanie, take it away in the chat. 615-880-1100 is the Family Safety Center. And then the good old YWCA that has a crisis line that's 24 hours is 1-800-334-4628.
Well, hold on a second. I'm so sorry. I was not quick enough. The first number was 880-7600.
880-1100.
1100. Okay, that's Family Safety Center.
That's the Family Safety Center, and they'll have access to all the other resources. So for all the shelters and things like that. And probably shelters and other resources in other counties too, that I'm sure they can help with. But then the YWCA is 1-800-334-4628. And that's a 24-hour resource and crisis line as well.
All right.
Now, Judge Walker's just showing off her memory of those numbers.
Yeah.
She's just showing off.
I have it written down.
She knows I'm an old
right
man that doesn't have the memory I did.
She just has prepared notes. So, well, we've got 1 minute left. Any closing thoughts? I don't want to go into a question that's going to carry us over, but I want to first thank you, Judge Walker, for joining us tonight. Thank you, as always, Judge Smith, for coming up with these ideas and helping the community learn about things that are relevant towards in family law matters. Any closing comments or thoughts to everyone that has joined us tonight? We've had a wonderful crowd tonight. I don't know if you've seen the chat, but they've been very consistent in dialogue and giving information about things and feedback. Yeah.
Let me say, first of all, I want to thank Judge Walker. She's a dear friend. She does a great job. And when we get together, we talk domestic violence. Which we probably both need to get a life, but that's what we do.
I have one, Phil.
Yeah, well, what can I say? I'm an empty nester. I want to thank the Women's Political Collaborative, and I also want to plug the domestic violence CLE seminar that we're partnering with the National Bar Association. Judge Walker is going to be there. Judge Robinson had to bug out, but we're going to have Dana Ballinger there. I'm going to try to get Judge Escobar there. And this is not just a domestic violence seminar for lawyers on how to handle DV cases. It is about handling those cases as a lawyer, the effect that those cases can have on you. And then when you do have one of these high conflict cases where there may be a threat or a potential threat, what you can do as a lawyer to protect yourself. I think it's going to be a wonderful seminar. It's going to be November 4th in the jury assembly room of the AA Birch Courthouse. And it's going to be from 3 to 5. I encourage everyone to attend. If you're going to work in this area, you've got to remember how to protect yourself.
Well, thank you again, Judge Walker and Judge Smith, and thank you everyone for attending. I believe we had Judge Amanda McClendon joining us tonight. All three of these judges are up for re-election, so you will be seeing their signs and seeing them on the ballot in May. Whoop, whoop. So continue to support them and their efforts on the bench. Thank you all and have a wonderful week. Yeah, have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.
Thanks,
Good night.
Steph.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.